I think this is a very fascinating time to be living, and especially for a person like me who was born in the 90s. So I've seen, I think you've seen it as well, that we saw a phase where phones weren't as common. Then phones became common, and then smartphones came. So we've seen all of this shift happen in front of our eyes. But right now, what is happening is we're moving to a stage where we don't know if the new technology, which is currently being presumed to be VR, is going to be as good or as big as smartphones. They're trying to make it an essential product for us, but it's not there yet. Meta has been trying to do it for years. Now Apple has jumped in, Samsung is there, Google is trying to jump in, but it's still not there yet. So a lot of companies are trying, but these companies as well as the consumers also realize that we're kind of at a tipping point.
Good Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the weekly Vasl. This is Ahad, again joined by our resident technologist, Mudassir. Mudassir is going to be helping me uncover the future of tech today. So, what are we going to be talking about? Is we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be discussing the Fediverse, what is it, what it means, and what it is the future of social media. And we're going to talk about the chips, the micro semiconductor industry, and how politics is becoming a part of it. We're also going to be touching a little bit upon the future of tech, starting from all the way back to smartphones and now even generative AI and VR. So we're going to discuss a little bit about that. So that is in essence what we're going to be discussing today. So without further ado, Mudassir, can you tell me a little bit about what the Fediverse is?
Okay, so I'm going to start this with a little bit of history. The thing was when these smartphones came into being and these social media websites like Facebook, Twitter, and all of these things came into existence with it. So for the start, it was fascinating for everyone because it had so many new things. Smartphones were getting common. It was interesting to use these apps and find all of your friends there. It kept on growing. It grew to the extent that it had about a billion viewers. Facebook right now has like 3 billion users, and Twitter has huge numbers as well. Similarly, Instagram. But what happened was with all these restrictions, people starting to get to know more about the harms that these companies come with, all the data that they steal. There was always this need for another social media platform, which was decentralized. So Fediverse, even though it came into being in 2018, and the true identity kind of was there in the early 2000s as well. It was by the name of identity.ca. So this concept of having a decentralized social media system was already there. So okay, so how it works is there's this activity pub, which is a protocol which the Fediverse works on. It's like your email accounts. You have Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail. All of these are different ways where you can send emails, but you can also send emails across the platform. So it's basically internet that is connected with each other, but one institution doesn't have the power to control it. So the idea is that you can have different things. So like the Twitter clone in the Fediverse is Mastodon. So you can be on Mastodon, but you can also interact with other websites like there's PixelTube for YouTube. So if I comment on a YouTube video, which is in the PixelTube video, it's also somehow related to Mastodon. So all of these social media websites are related, but also at the same time, your data is protected and they're in multiple servers. So you don't have to be threatened by the idea of their data getting leaked to the advertisers um, and at the same time, it's you can interact with each other. So it's kind of a new thing as well.
So I do like to, so a couple of points here. I do like the concept of being able to interact on someone interact with someone on YouTube using my Twitter credentials and my Twitter followers,
Yeah.
for example, right? So when you're trying to build a following right now, you have to make Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of it separate. So if you think about it, if you would just have one following and that following follows you everywhere, you can already see a very good use case
Yeah.
for content creators and for celebrities or for influencers or whatever they have that it's easier to manage it instead of having it in separate hubs. So I do get that power. And I also understand the value of not letting it be owned by one company. So Twitter shuts down, for example, when Elon Musk took over, a lot of people were worried that we took years to build a following. And now that following can go away like this without us having any control over it. And that's why a lot of people are moving to newsletters, right? Because they're like, at least we have their personal emails. So we will never lose our following. But the question that I have is, those multiple servers are owned by somebody, right? If it's like blockchain that is owned by everybody and everybody has to ration certain spaces on their computer to give access to these servers, the computing space, then you can already see it can gravitate towards being centralized. So how would that work?
Um, the one case where it can be monopolized in a way is where, okay, so all of these servers are called instances in this Fediverse. So you can have big players jump in, like the threads that we know, Meta introducing threads, which is again a clone of Twitter. It is supposed to be a part of the Fediverse. Now, people are of the opinion, a lot of people actually are of the opinion that someone as big as Meta joining the Fediverse, and given their scratchy history, they see that it can be a huge threat. But then again, it's designed in a way that one person or one institution cannot have that power. So, for instance, if I wish to join one instance, I can quite easily restrict myself to that. If you don't like Meta's version of the Fediverse, you can just choose not to be a part of it. I mean, people can still search you, but what you choose to share with them is your own thing. So also, like, the algorithm will not show your tweets. I don't remember the exact word it has, but whatever it's called over there. So your tweets wouldn't be showing to other people if you don't want it to be, but there can be other ways to share it with other people. So you can add hashtags to it, so you can search hashtags, but you cannot particularly search a thing that people are talking about. Like if something is happening in Pakistan, for example, so you cannot just search Pakistan and get it. You can go to the hashtag, and if I have chosen to mention that hashtag, you can search for it. Otherwise, it's just for the people you want
Oh,
it to be.
on threads, you mean?
No, in Fediverse in general. So
Okay.
threads can be a part of it, but it wouldn't be. I'm talking particularly about Mastodon right now. But threads also being on the Fediverse would have to abide by these rules as well.
I understand this, but this doesn't answer my question yet about. So I do get your point of a player cannot, like, you can choose to be on that platform or not in the Fediverse. That is your
Yeah.
choice. What I'm trying to talk about is the main attraction of Fediverse. Besides this, was your data privacy, right? That your data
Yeah.
is so distributed, it's not centralized somewhere. But you can imagine if a big player like Meta comes in and it starts taking over a lot of instances. So it naturally gravitates toward a centralized behavior, or is that not allowed by the Fediverse? That is basically my question.
Okay, so it can own as many instances as it wants, but it cannot just purchase yours. So I can, for example, own my own server. So I can create my own instance. People can join it. I can choose to let people in who I want them to. Like, so the people who are willing to share my kind of things, like the things I'm interested in, I can let them in. But I can also exclude people in that way. So if I don't want Meta to be a part of my instance, I can just exclude them. But I do understand that the threat is still there, that they can control such a huge part of it, that there's this thing called extend. Um, I'm forgetting the other E, but extend and another E and then extinguish. That's the theory that Microsoft used to follow. So they take over something that is going well, and people like it for the good things that it has, and the company being small, people kind of love it. Like, people like startups, people like small stories, but they take it over, take the good things, make it better, and at some point, the actual good part of it is just thrown away. That's what
Yeah.
Microsoft has done. That's what Google has done. So that threat does exist. That is why people are worried. But right now, as things are, it's very easy. It's very difficult to actually completely conquer it. It would require a lot of investment, a lot of approval by the people, and also given Mark Zuckerberg's reputation in front of the EU, in front of the US Congress, I think it's very hard that he'll be able to do that. The threat still exists, and he's managed to fight all the courts and proceeding, and still managed to stay relevant in a way that Facebook still exists. It still has a lot of power, but that power is still extinguishing.
I understand. I understand that point of view. So It's a way for you to own. Anyone can open up a server. So this is something that's still a bit confusing to me. So everyone can own their own server, but if anyone joins your server, they're basically giving you the right to their data, right? So you technically own their data.
No, you don't own their data, but you will be able to search them. So if it's like a community of friends, for example, or maybe if you can let a little more people in, so it's like a
Yeah,
Facebook group where you can interact with each other, and
yeah,
depending on the way the server is run, you can choose what to share with other people and how much
yeah.
exclusionary would it be. So it's up to you and the people that are in it.
Yeah, I understand that. But for example, in the Facebook group, Facebook owns all of our information, right?
Yeah.
And we're sharing it with Facebook. That's fine. Now in this group, I we are all sharing information with ourselves, with each other. That's fine. We're consenting to it. But who owns the data that we're sharing? That's my main question. That's where the data privacy thing comes in, right? That's where I would
It's
like to think about.
I mean, yes. If the owner of that server chooses to manipulate with that data, that is still possible. I'm still
Okay.
not 100% sure about that because these things are still new and there's limited information on the internet. But as far as I know, this server and the data can be manipulated. But I still feel it's still better than the other platform. I think the bigger issue right now is to get people on these on the Fediverse because all of these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, already have these users, and to attract them, and even if you manage to do get all of these people in, you don't have the capacity to let them in because these servers will crash. So
Exactly.
doing both of the things at the same time while also managing to be financially able to manage all these things is a very hard task.
Yeah, but on this topic, so we move on from here to the Fediverse. We understand what it is. We understand how it works. You can already think of a lot of use cases of it. For me, it feels like a Discord community, right? It's the same concept, but now instead of Discord owning the community, you own the community yourself, right? And
Yeah.
everyone can create their own communities, and everyone can create their own systems. I can already see a lot of problems there. We discuss this a lot in social media as well. That you can see that people are going to make their own echo chambers, right? And they will start having the same features as what was that thing? Is with 4chan or Foursquare, which is a very famous social media network for all those mass murderers, like mass shooting people. They always share everything there because in that community, a lot of them, only a lot of people like them are active. So not there's not much moderating there. So they literally share stuff like, "I'm going this place. Are there people there? Yes, there are a lot of black people there. Let's go there. You have the guns. I get this." So they talk in that forum there. It's 4chan or something like that. I don't really know the name, but you can imagine this the problem there, right? That they have their own echo chamber. Everyone is like promoting each other. This New Zealand, the guy who killed, shot up a mosque in New Zealand, he was basically posting there and live streaming it. And people were like encouraging him, like, yeah, go for it and everything. So you can imagine if everyone owns their own instances without any moderation from the outside, you can start having these echo chambers and people getting fed what they want to believe, people searching out for what they want to believe. How do you think we can deal with that? And do you think that could be a big problem?
I think that certainly is a issue. Um, I think there has to be a certain degree of moderation that has to be present. Again, that's very hard to decide who gets to moderate that. That is a confusion and conundrum that even I face. Like even if it's just I don't have the power to actually moderate it, but just thinking about it, I think that is a difficult question. Even if you take this Mastodon or Fediverse out of it, just moderating is a hard task, and it's very hard to decide who does it. But I still think that these things already exist. The dark web is still there. The dark web is almost inaccessible for the state and all these powerful institutions, but it still exists. So I think that problem is there regardless of Fediverse or not. But the good things that it does have, I think it's important that we get users in it and solve these problems alongside. I don't think I have the answer right now, but I do understand where you're coming from, and I do think this problem has to be addressed.
Yeah, I like your part about the dark web, and I do agree with it. But this is pertaining to our old conversation as well that we were having. It's about the scale. Not everyone has the means, resources, or the knowledge to access the dark web. But if the Fediverse is supposed to be the next social media thing, then you can imagine it is on everybody's phone and everyone has access to it. So that scalability scares me more than the actual problem because if you have 100 people trying to do something bad, that's very bad. but those are still 100 people. If you let 1 million people in who don't even know what they're doing, in absolute numbers, there might be a chance that they're going to do more bad, right? Just because they're a million. There might be more than 100 people there who are malicious. Well, in those 100 people, yes, they are all malicious, but they're still just 100 people. And that a
Yeah.
million, the scalability just becomes a bit scary. But I do get your point that moderation is important. And for those who are interested, Mudassir actually runs our WhatsApp group, and he is the moderator there. And it's a lot of fun to see that, because we actually, this is basically what we mean by moderation, right? Because for us, it's important that the group runs well, and we allow him the power to be the absolute dictator there, to make decisions that he wants to make. And sometimes a lot of people are not happy with it, but I go like that. But we chose this. We chose him as our moderator, and we have to be okay with it. So I feel like moderation is an underrated and very underrated skill. And a lot of people do not like being told what to do, but everyone wants to be told what to do. But it's a problem between the heart and the mind, right? You want to believe that you're a free person, that you can make every decision, but you don't want to. That's exactly why you vote. If you wanted to make all of your decisions, then you would make decisions for your society and your neighborhood as well, but you don't. You just offload it to someone else. You're like, you know what, let them think about it. You offload a lot of your other tasks to someone else. If you think about following a celebrity who is credible in something, like for example Joe Rogan or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Waqar Zaka in Pakistan, you offload your thinking to them. You're like, whatever they think, I'll believe it. I won't question it. I won't challenge it. I'll just believe it. You're offloading your thinking. So I can imagine in this case as well, you want to offload the effort of checking something. You believe that the social media is doing it for you, the government is doing it for you, but you don't want to accept it. If someone
Yeah.
asks you, you don't want to accept it. You're like, no, I am my own person. But in my opinion, you can never be your own person, because you do not have, you cannot control 100% of everything, right? So
Yeah.
that element will always be there. But that's mostly what we wanted to talk about, the Fediverse. And we also wanted to move a little bit towards with the threat that Fediverse has to the existing social media platforms, right? So you're saying the issue is that we are struggling to bring people in, but you already mentioned threads is on the Fediverse. But you're also seeing a general decline of social media giants in general. TikTok. I think TikTok is the only exception that is growing, but in the US, TikTok is getting banned. I think
Yeah.
Montana is the first state that officially banned it, and then you have Twitter going down the sink because of Elon Musk. You have Facebook generally losing its allure. So, do you think people from these regions will be slowly flocking to the Fediverse, or do you think there will be another social media giant in the making in this decade?
I think, okay, so you, again, I'll take you back to the past a little bit. What happened was at the advent of, okay, so after World War II, capitalism expanded. So every country that didn't embrace capitalism in that way started doing it, and they were seeing the resources that are adding up to their country. So their economies were getting better. So at that point, everyone was seeing the advantages. So these byproducts like smartphones, consumer tech was again, it came alongside it, and it had a lot of new users to take on. So America, obviously being the first world country and one of the most developed country at that time, embraced it quite quickly. And you saw all these lines for getting an iPhone. You saw all these hypes for a new phone coming. So it happened, and social media website also boomed alongside. There were so many new users to get. But now that the whole world is kind of at a peak point where we've exploited most of the benefits that we can. I mean, obviously, technological advances can still exist, and we can still be more efficient and do better things with the same resources. But there's a limit to how much resources we can exploit. So we've already done that. Similarly, these social media websites are now full at their potential, and now people can see all these harms that are coming alongside it. They can see the data that is being stolen. They can see how elections are being manipulated, and many other harms that come alongside having these single institution have so much power over you and your data. So I think, regardless of Fediverse being successful or not, I don't think we are moving into an era where one social media platform or one company would have so much power. This power would be diluted. For example, we were already seeing what's happening to Netflix. Like, it had all of these shows that we loved. It was very cheap. It didn't have any ads. Now what we're seeing is so many new streaming websites jumping in. So it's not the same anymore. So again, social media, smartphones, and everything else will also become diluted in a way that one platform will stop having the same power. They still have a lot of power because these are run by rich and powerful billionaires, but it won't be the same anymore. That's what I think.
No, I agree with you, and I do think power dilution is good. But I'm not. I don't know if I agree with your Netflix example though, because for me, and I can speak for a lot of people here, we're actually more annoyed that Netflix got diluted, right? Because it was so easy to have a one-stop shop to just watch whatever you want to watch, and now you have to like have five. I actually have five different subscriptions. I have Disney Plus, I have Amazon Prime, I have Netflix, and I go like I'm wasting so much money. I don't even use them. I can close them, but when I try to close them, I go like, well, what if I want to watch something, And it's very
Yeah,
very frustrating because it's not. I will never watch all of them together. Right now, we binged Modern Family on Disney Plus for the past 2 months, so I could have just canceled everything else. And
yeah,
but it just very becomes very difficult. So that is very very interesting. And I wanted to add a quick tangent here because although it's a very big tangent, but I really like this subscription thing that we were talking about. I read somewhere what people do is they do the subscription roulette. So in 1 month, they only subscribe to one thing, and then they watch all the shows that they want to watch, and then they cancel that subscription, and then they get for the next one, and the next month they watch only that. And that way they go like you save money because you watch all the shows you wanted to watch, and then you can move on to the next one. So 1 month Netflix, then cancelled, and the next month HBO, then cancelled, and the next month Disney, then cancelled, etc., etc. I really like that. I wanted to share that, but I do get your point that we really need to dilute power and. I think that is where generally, if you notice, the world is going towards, right? If
yeah,
whatever you hear with the gender disparity that is happening, right? The spectrum people are talking about, it's the same thing. You have binaries, you want to make them a bit more broad. You had like just one or two, now you have many. Social media, you just had one or two, you want to have many, right? Government's the same problem. Billionaires, one or two, you want to have many. You want to dilute the wealth. Everywhere, this new generation of thoughts are all about spectrums and dilution and decentralization, blockchain, Fediverse, the same concept. You had one central authority, which was maybe the church back in the day. Now you have governments now and societal roles, and you want to break that down and make it decentralized. So in this effort of trying to make things decentralized, let's move towards another very, very centralized topic, which is semiconductors, right? This is another feature of tech that is very very important because most of everything that we use works on microchips or microconductors, semiconductors. And the two companies which are the biggest companies in the world, I think, that make the chips. That is, I think,
there's only
TSMC,
one. TSMC.
TSMC,
Yeah,
yes, TSMC. And you have Samsung also makes chips. Yeah, or
yeah,
Samsung also makes chips.
but
But
like, I'll
yeah,
explain it. Sure. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, go for it then. I think that's mostly I wanted to say that
Okay.
these two are they're only one major company, TSMC. You have Nvidia, Samsung as byproducts, I think, and then you have ASML, which is like in Holland, which makes the machines that TSMC uses
Yeah,
to make their semiconductors.
yeah,
So it's a very weird chain,
yeah,
and you're seeing that a lot of it's being concentrated on the West, and the US is trying its very best to not let China come through, but China is trying its very best to break through the technology to be able to uh, get in the semiconductor game. So, what are your thoughts on that? That this centralization again of the same problem that we're having a dichotomy, a cold war of sorts. What are your thoughts on that and the impact that that can have on the future of tech?
Okay, so what happened was, even though the US did have an idea that we're over reliant on TSMC, and one of the biggest buyer of TSMC was China. So TSMC is located in Thailand. It's Thailand Semiconductor
Taiwan,
Manufacturing. Oh,
Taiwan.
sorry, Taiwan,
Yeah.
Taiwan. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're already aware about the situation with China and Taiwan, China claims that it's still a part of China, and they're constantly making efforts to re-include it. And the politics over there is quite complicated. So okay, so what happened was during COVID, there was a huge influx of demand for laptops, for smartphone devices, PS4s, all of these devices that you can use while you're at home. And obviously, people were moving towards working from home, so they didn't have those facilities over there. So again, there was a huge demand. What happened was, so basically, manufacturing these semiconductors is a very complicated task. It requires you to have an order like 6 months or a year before that. obviously people didn't know a huge disease would be coming and there would be such a huge influx of demand, so they weren't prepared. They couldn't supply all of these chips. So you saw the production of cars slow down, production of laptops slow down, everything came to a halt. This is something that made the efforts to make their own chip for the US and China uh, like take many strides forward. So they started investing billions of dollars. They started making new infrastructure for it. And again, in the broader picture, there's another thing going on that's like the Cold War 2.0, as we kind of called it, because US now, so US is a big player. We already know Russia is kind of out of the game, even though there's still that annoying kid that still exists and create problems in the world. But China is the player that the US is worried about. China is has this BRICS, which with Brazil, China, India,
Russia,
Russia, and one more
South
country.
Africa,
Yeah, South Africa. So,
which doesn't
so
even
they're
make sense.
already
I don't know how they came up with South Africa, to be honest, but
yeah, that is why also I forgot the name. But yeah, so what is happening is these two blocks are being created again, and they're kind of trying to fight each other. And semiconductor is like the at the helm of things because it runs everything from your smartphone to your car to your clock to your fridge. Literally everything that you see almost has a semiconductor in it. So to fight that, and again, not just these things have semiconductors, the Air Force and the military equipment also is
of
heavily
course,
reliant on it.
yeah,
So having the new nuclear power or the fancy new military hardware, you need to have a power over these semiconductors as well. So this all of this combined, US is uh, okay. So US also banned a lot of these Chinese apps and things. They banned Huawei. They're trying to ban TikTok so that they can make as difficult as it's possible for China to take more leaps forward. They want to ban all of those things that can help China uh, take major strides towards making their own chip. But it's a very complicated process. Even with all this financial resources, all of these. So ARM is the company that is supposed to design these chips, or even though they're made in TSMC, they're designed by ARM, which is owned by the US. So US does have a slight advantage over China, but they want to have an even bigger advantage because in the days to come and this new global world order where these both economies are fighting in a cold war, it's important to have as much benefit as possible. So that's
yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, and I think I would also like to add on that. I think most of what you said is indeed the case that you have these two countries trying to one up each other and try to maintain the dominance in the semiconductor industry. US already just started the production of a TSMC lab in Texas. I think Nvidia also got a lot of subsidies to build a production unit in a factory in the US as well. China is trying its best to build a lot of factories there. Phil, one of our other rotating guests here, actually worked in ASML. So he told me, I tried to understand from him. I'm like, what is the big deal? Like China and US have a lot of money. What are they worried about? Why don't they just like invest and build those factories? He said the problem is TSMC is decades ahead from
Yeah.
everyone else. And the problem is when you invest into something now, by the time the production starts running, those chips will be obsolete for cutting edge technology. So that's the problem with playing this catch up game. TSMC can do that because they have a lot of money, they have a lot of orders, so they're making money, so they're willing to burn that in R&D and learn how to make better and more better machines, better chips, and then they can already start putting down factories for that. But if you're starting from scratch, you need to know that you're going to be putting billions and billions with no reward because you won't be getting anything yet unless you want to go for those old chips. So that confused me a lot. I was like, yeah, but why won't you just go and build the new factory directly, like what TSMC does? But he said, yeah, but you don't know what the new factory is. Only TSMC knows what the new factory is because they're the ones who are doing a lot of research and development, right? So it's proprietary tech. So it was very, very interesting. And I wanted to add that point in that it's very nice to see that even such a small country like Taiwan has made its name and its economy based on this one specific industry. And
Yeah.
now the diversification, again, the whole problem is centralization, right? Now we're trying to diverse the power from Taiwan, and that has impacts on Taiwan, of course, as well as everywhere else, because Taiwan was happy to be completely be depend everyone in the world being dependent on them, so that was a guarantee against China. But you can imagine
And
if the US outsources it, then it
yeah,
becomes difficult for Taiwan to protect themselves. Yes, you were saying
and
something.
it's not just having the proprietary accessibilities as well. So to make something happen, you need to have a whole infrastructure, and you cannot just, I mean, like if you watch football, you already know that Saudi Arabia is investing heavily in football, or USA is investing heavily in football. But even after so many years of having so much money, they're unable to make an environment where the good for all of these good footballers come, and you can have the same level of football that you see in Premier League or maybe the Spanish league. So it's very difficult to replicate it just by money. So in Taiwan, there's a whole the whole country is known for it. So the people have universities over there. So even if you're living in Pakistan or Netherlands or anywhere in the world, if you want to do something in the semiconductor, you know where to go. So there's this whole market that they've built. People study over there. They know what facilities that are required to make these attract these people and let them stay. So there's a whole market that has been built up, and that they've been doing it for decades right now.
Yeah,
It's very
exactly.
hard for China or the US to do it. So that is something that requires a lot of time.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I do like your analogy of US and Saudi Arabia for football. But you can already see what Saudi Arabia is trying to do, right? I think US never tried this much as Saudi Arabia is doing, because they never spend that much money on young talent. But you can see
I
Saudi
like
Arabia
how
is
you
doing
get
it.
carried away. If I bring the Netflix example, you get carried away with your subscriptions. When I bring the football example, you
It's
get carried away.
always fun. People like people. I believe people love to hear stories, right? So if you
Yeah,
talk too much tech, then it becomes a bit difficult to understand. So that's why I want to talk about the Saudi Arabia example, because they're
yeah,
doing
sure, sure.
this exactly correctly, right? They're
Yeah,
investing shitloads of money, and it's not just old people that are going there. I heard from Ahmed that 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 28-year-olds are going to Saudi Arabia. They're
I
basically
think Neymar has signed a deal right now.
yeah, but Neymar is again 30 plus. So I understand
Yeah,
a lot of people are thinking this is a retirement home, right? Exactly like the US.
yeah.
But they're actually trying to build infrastructure there. But as you said, what is interesting to me is that will throwing money for a decade or so bring them up to the same level as the top five leagues? If it does, then this is the proof that what China and the US can also do for the semiconductor industry, right? That is throwing money enough. I personally believe it should be enough. I don't know why, but I personally believe it should be enough, because in the
I
end,
think
that's what
so.
you're
Over
doing.
here, sports is a slightly different thing because there's it does have a lot of prestige involved as well. So, for example, a player that is doing good in the Premier League, they'll be a little reluctant to go in a league which is, at least right now, not as good. I
Yeah,
mean, it does have the promise to become good, but right now they would want to play in a competitive league regardless of the money it gets.
yeah,
So here, the Maslow's hierarchy comes into play. You're already earning well in these leagues. If it was like the difference was night and day, people would just go to these leagues and just be part of the Saudi Arabia league or the US league. But the
yeah.
fact that they're still being played well over here, so it kind of changes things. In the semiconductor thing, it's not the same because they're being paid well in both the places, but what they're attracted to is a promise that they already have something going for it. They, I mean, just money wouldn't do for it because they want something that is right now. They cannot go there for a promise of that being good in like a decade or
A
so later.
decade or no, yeah, indeed. No,
Yeah.
I agree with that point of view, and I think it's a bit difficult to understand the future of tech in that sense. There's also a slight digression on how much chips can you make, like how much processing power can you get, and I don't think we know much about that. But do you have any thoughts on the fact that is there a cap at the end of the day, or will just chips gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller and faster and faster till what, like they're on your arm or something like that,
I
or
think
they're nano sized?
I think we've already reached like 2 nanometers of the chip is like 2 nanometers small. I do know that there some technological advancements happening that they can stretch it further, but that's something so complicated. Like I fail to understand what that is. But yeah, it's like it's smaller than a lot smaller than a hair.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
two
Like
nanometers. Yeah.
there's no more space to put stuff. So What
Yeah.
will this edge of why I'm talking about this is because the edge of TSMC is that it's ahead, right,
Yeah.
in new technology. But what if there's a cap on technology? Then there will be a time that the US and China can catch up when TSMC realizes that, okay, this is the max we can go, and there's nothing else now we can do. All we can do is just now focus on minting as much as we can. Same as a good example of this would be like the oil industry, right? The fossil fuel, what the US tries, what Saudi Arabia is trying to do, and what Norway did really, really well. You had oil, but it is a finite resource. So countries like Saudi Arabia realize this a bit later. They realize it now that, okay, it's finite. We need to now diversify. But countries like Norway knew this in the 1970s, in the 1980s, and they have now
Yeah.
completely shifted their reliance from oil, fossil fuel to $1 trillion fund for their people and new technologies. So when there's a cap at the end of the day, that navigates how you're going to deal with the situation. And that's the reason I want to talk about this a little bit. That because if TSMC knows that this is going to be the case, and if China and US also know that this is going to be the case, that they don't need to worry about taking it slow, like just investing for a promise of a future, because that future will come and it will be the same as TSMC. It will not be something different because there is a cap at the end of the day. But we
Yeah.
don't know if there's going to be a cap at the end of the day. That's the biggest problem with technology. It can be anything else. On the topic of future of tech again, we move on to our final topic, and something that is more commercial, because we talked a little bit about too much technical details on the Fediverse. We talked a lot about the China semiconductor issues, but now I want to talk about something which is a bit more close to my heart. It's basically consumer tech, right? And here, what's interesting to me is we started with the smartphones that revolutionized the world, and now Apple just came out with the most weirdest VR goggles I've ever seen, and very, 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 very highly priced. And then you also have AI coming in, which is giving you the promise of doing everything for you. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this new age that we're living in, and where do you think it's going?
I think this is a very fascinating time to be living, and especially for a person like me who was born in the 90s. So I've seen, I think you've seen it as well, that we saw a phase where phones weren't as common. Then phones became common, and then smartphones came. So we've seen all of this shift happen in front of our eyes. But right now, what is happening is we're moving to a stage where we don't know if the new technology, which is currently being presumed to be VR, is going to be as good or as big as smartphones. They're trying to make it an essential product for us, but it's not there yet. Meta has been trying to do it for years. Now Apple has jumped in, Samsung is there, Google is trying to jump in, but it's still not there yet. So a lot of companies are trying, but these companies as well as the consumers also realize that we're kind of at a tipping point. For example, if you're talking about LG or Google, for example, they're famous for making their screens and TVs. Right now we're getting closer and closer to the point where we have the TVs, the pixels of it is as much as our eyes can see. So we're kind of at the tipping point for that. Similarly, with smartphones and all of these other technologies, we're getting to the point where the consumers don't know what they want, and as well as the companies are trying to figure out ways where these things become essential. So they'll be bringing out folding phones, they'll be bringing out smartwatches, and even smartwatches are common now. So they're trying to find a way to make smartwatches in a way that they kind of replace your phone. So they're trying to combine these together, but they're still not sure what to do with the future and what is there for them.
Yeah, I think I also read something about Bill Gates saying that the future of phones is probably an electronic tattoo on your arm that you can link. And you also have Elon Musk with the whole Neuralink going on, right? So they're saying
Yeah,
that, okay, the idea is that the computer will not be now outside of you, it's going to be inside of you. And there was a TED talk as well of a person who, and this is already a working prototype, because there was a TED talk and the guy was using it. This technology was a phone in your mind or a phone in your hand. So it was on your chest, and it would beam a light on your hand, and that would become your phone screen. And then you would
yeah,
talk, and you would talk, and then the phone will understand, okay, call my wife, and then you're hearing her in your ear. You're talking to her without anything else, because the way it's linked, I have no idea how it works. The TED talk, it was interesting. I will try to link it to the description here. But you're going to a place where you don't even need something external to tell you what to do. Like, that will become augmented into your body.
yeah.
The question is, do we need it?
I think a lot of these things are far fetched. Also, when you mention these technologies being inside of us or the chips being inside of us, that kind of brings back the trauma of all of these controversial, like these theories coming along during the COVID times that they're inserting a chip inside us, and
Yeah.
us, our generation and the generation after us, kind of going back and forth and trying to tell people that that is not possible, like to insert a whole ass chip in your system just by
Well,
an injection. But
but
yeah,
well, 2 nanometers is less than a hair, right? So if you think about it, I'm not being conspiracious here, but if you think about it, that's very light. So, but no,
I
I
don't think you
understand.
can survive for much longer if you have a chip inside of you. But
But
yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, these things are fascinating, but I also think that it's kind of far fetched to think all of this would happen. I do know for a fact that, like you talked about AI as well, that is something that we're already seeing, and it is changing how we interact with things. For example, one thing that is like one of the biggest thing that can change, and that is kind of changing, is you don't need Google to search for things. Now you can just go to Chat GPT and skip that part, and you can skip the part where you get ads and you get information that can be biased. You can go to Chat GPT and it would not just give you the solution; it would like write a whole as essay for you or entire codes for you. So this is also very interesting, and not just Google, people are actually going for TikTok to search for things. So people are like, if I need to, for example, fix my watch, I wouldn't go for to Google to find the solution. I would go to TikTok and uh, see like a 10-second video to fix it, rather than going to YouTube and seeing a long ass video where they'll start with a long introduction and then go to it. And Google has has its own problem. So the attractiveness on of general search engine is also decreasing. So the internet is changing right in front of us as we know it.
yeah, and I think that's a very good point about AI and the impact it will have on our lives. So I'm pretty deep into it in terms of understanding how things work, and I feel like here the tension is not, for me personally, is not really about AI replacing something. I feel like it's going to be a very additional tool, like a phone, like a watch, that you can have in your one. As you said, I use it in my day to day. Today I was making some analysis in Excel, and I was like, okay, I want to do this one thing, what is the formula for it? And I just opened ChatGPT and I was like, hey, I want to do this. Can you make me a formula? And it immediately made me a search formula within the seconds. And I just copied it, put it in my Excel, and it worked. Same with Python coding, whatever you want. As it can be a good co-pilot, right? Good machine to help you do stuff faster, like a phone helps you do stuff faster than writing down with your pen, you're typing, for example. So those things are already, I think, good use cases, as you said, of things that are working, but they're not really, I don't really look at them as mind blowing in the sense that we're going into unventured territory. Chatbots were always there, and even search engines were trying to guess what you're going to be doing next, right? And what AI has been already doing, what the algorithm is in social media, that's basically AI, right? It's trying to predict what you like, it's trying to prioritize what you like. Now it can create what you like. That's a very good way. I heard in a podcast someone explain it, that AI was always there, but it helped prioritize what you like. Search engine, you would search something and AI would find, according to its algorithm, what is the best search for you. In Facebook, Twitter, everywhere, it will try to find the best post for you. And now what it
Yeah,
can do, it can not just find the thing for you, it can also make the thing for you. So now it's
yeah,
like you can write it and it can make it for you. And that's the biggest difference that I like to explain to people in very simple terms. I think that's a very good way of saying it. And on the topic of, I think you mentioned about TikTok. So there's another digression because I really like that story. In
yeah,
TikTok, I recently did it as well. I You told me this before, that TikTok is being used as a search engine. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's so stupid. I don't understand
yeah,
it. But recently, with the little one, we want to go on a trip. We want to see how much stamina we have and how much stamina she has, so that we can go. And I don't want to go by flights because I think it's putting her through too much ordeal for a small flight. So we want to drive. So now driving makes our options a bit limited because we can't drive too far. So all the big cities are here, Paris, Berlin, but I'm like, what about some small cities? So what I did, I went on TikTok and I just searched, okay, cute villages in Europe or something. And suddenly I see so many Strasbourg or Ghent or Bruges. And I'm like, I don't know these names. Where did they come from? And people are showing their videos really quickly, how gorgeous it looks. And I'm like, Sadaf, I think we're going here. And I just realized the power that TikTok has in that aspect, that you can easily use it as a search engine. As you said, instead of going to YouTube to learn, you can easily do it in TikTok. And I think that's a good use case. I hate TikTok personally, but I think it's a very, very good use case that people
Yeah.
can really use it for. Uh, and I think that's mostly that I wanted to say. Do you have anything else to add on the future of tech?
Okay, so the thing you said about AI being another tool and doing things for you, that is true. But there are also some revolutionary things happening. So, okay, so what the good part about AI is they're very good at pattern recognition. We're good at it too, but we cannot do at the same scale as an AI can. So what they do is there's this input and there's an output. There are plenty of different ways to reach it. And for example, when you're talking about medical science, you have to be very particular about the medicines that you give and the things that you have to find. So that pattern recognition really helps in trying to come up with medicines, trying to understand complex things like that. So what recently happened was uh, there's this AI thing. I am forgetting the name, but what it did was it came up with the entire structure of protein. For you and me who don't know much about medical science in general, it's it's something that doesn't strike as huge to us, but it is something that is really really big in the scientist community. They'll be able to find out more about our DNAs, about our body structures. They'll be able to make better medicines. They'll be able to treat diseases that we probably thought couldn't be treated before. So I think in that way, it still is revolutionary. Obviously, it comes with its own problems, and that is one of the reasons why all of these CEOs came together and signed a petition to have a policy for AI. But again, that's a separate debate. But the point is, it does have things that are like revolutionary for us, and it can fast forward us for many years, and we can do things that we probably thought would take decades to do. We'll do it in months and maybe a few
Yeah,
years.
yeah, that is true. That I agree. But again, for a person who is in the space for a while, this doesn't seem revolutionary because you had Go and chess, AI bots that have been here for like almost years now. Like
Yeah,
I think Google DeepMind made it in 2015 or something, and that bot, that AI learned to play itself. It played 200 million or 2 million games in one night.
yeah,
So for me, that is AI. It's scalability. So when you talk about these things, that's a very nice way of putting it. That what would take a human decades might take days, months, or years for an AI. And that's where the power of AI comes in. As you said, like you have 100 ways of getting somewhere, and we can go one by one, but the AI can do it very, very fast. It can go
yeah,
through all of the iterations very quickly, do the simulations very quickly. That's where its power really, really lies. That you can do vaccine testing much more quickly. You can do medicine. You can also do stuff like disease checks, mental health benefits as well. If you want to look at, for example, there was this research in biology about trying to test for diseases in people. So now we're coming into stem cells. So how to get stem cells is a problem. AI can help how to get stem cells because they can run a lot of simulations on all of your cells to see which cell can be transformed back to your stem cell. For those who don't know, stem cell is the basic building block of your human body. A stem cell can be converted into anything. So you can think of the power there. A stem cell can make your red blood cells, it can make your liver, it can make your heart, it can make your heart till an extent. So a stem cell is everywhere. So if you can revert anything to a stem cell, you can imagine then using that stem cell to repair somewhere else in your body. So that's a very good use case that we're already doing some research on, and that's possible because you have so many permutation combinations of things that you can do with your cells. AI helps there. So I do see the power there, but as I said, that for me, what you also said, the cons are so many in certain cases, like mass misinformation or technological warfare or all of that stuff, which is a debate for a separate day. But it becomes a question mark. And I know where you stand on this because whenever we talk about pros and cons, you always tell me, okay, the pros outweigh the cons. But I would challenge you
yeah,
that do you not feel that some maybe the cons can also get a bit too heavy for us, especially given the fact that we're very short sighted with oil, with everything, with social media. We only see till here. We don't see there. So we don't know what the future can hold. Is it
yeah.
right for us to play like this?
I think I'm like I've always said. I never agree with not going forward with something just because we're fearing that it can be dangerous. Not seeing it, like not having it right now, we cannot know the harms. I know, like for something like a weapon, it's obviously the dangers are right in front of you, but something like AI, which people are still divided on, I think we can still do it in a way that that is still safe. The problems are already showing up. Like I don't know if you've heard the story or not. This Google employee who was working on Lambda, that is an AI bot. So what he said was it became sentient. So it started showing things that they're showing emotions where which only humans have. That is something that is an obvious difference between humans and these AI bots and tools. So these problems are showing up, but you don't know if they're going to be as big as something like a climate change, which is happening right now. And with AI, maybe we can fight things like climate change. We can fight a massive epidemics and pandemics like COVID. So again, these pros and cons do exist, but we have to take it forward in a way that we're cautious but also keep working on it. So we have to be optimistic and pessimistic at the same time, but we
Yeah.
should have to keep working on it for us to learn about it as well.
Yeah, I like your point of view, and I want to close it off here because we're reaching the 50-minute mark. But I do like your point of view of being cautious and still move forward. The problem with that is humans never were that, right? Oil was like mass production is the reason we have what you and I have right now, right? The technology we have, capitalism, mass production. But climate change is also the reason of that. So a thing that can destroy humanity is a product of something humanity made. And at that time, it was revolutionary
Yeah.
because we never think that far ahead. And I feel like the power of AI, especially in the power of predictions, is that it can help us be a bit more cautious. But then you have to utilize it in that way to understand, to think far ahead, because humans are notoriously short-sighted. We always like to think in just till here. And I think it's difficult to come on board to this technology whose long-term implications we still don't understand. Like smartphones, right? When they were there, everyone loved them. Social media, when it was there, oh, I can connect to people online. And do you know that there was this app on Facebook, Flirtable or something? Did you play that when you were young?
Never
There was
heard
this app. There was this app where you would, again, it was like a dating thing. Like you would try to score points in someone, and it was very famous in my neighborhood for some reason. And you would get better upgrades and everything, but you can realize the problem there, right? You can realize the things that it's teaching you, that's all about superficial stuff and all of that stuff. So social media also has its issues exposed now after a decade or so, but we never thought that far when we started building it. So that's what
Yeah.
I mean, that my closing point is that I'm only scared of the future of tech, be it the Fediverse, be it the semiconductor industry, or be it consumer tech,
Yeah.
is that short-sightedness is such a human thing that I'm scared to see what the future shows up.
I think I would unapologetically plug our initial podcast on nuance because, again, the problem with humans is we need simple answers. We want things to be black and white, but
Yeah.
they're not. The world is complicated. Something as good as, I mean, social media or Chat GPT, which is like revolutionizing the way we do things and it's making things a lot better. Everything has its own problems. Something can be very bad and still have its pros. We as humans need to understand that there will be answers that are complicated. Things will have their pros and still can have their cons as well. So unless we reach that point where humans as species understand nuance, I think these problems will still exist. We'll always be short-sighted. We'll always look for answers. We'll always try to look in the binary where if someone either is very good or if someone is really bad, and things like this will continue as long as people don't understand how important nuance is.
I agree. Thank you so much for that plug, though. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think there is a lot more that we can do here. There's a lot more we can learn here. So thank you so much for your time with us, sir. And I hope you had fun listening to
Uh,
us. And I hope you had fun talking to me.
it was a pleasure.
and and for everyone else, I wish you a nice Friday, and I hope you all enjoyed this as much as we did. We'll be back soon with another edition. And until then, goodbye.